Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's design webinar, continuing our theme of design and business software for the month of February. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Philip Gibney, Sales and Marketing Consultant of ChiefArchitect. Philip, please take it away.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Philip with ChiefArchitect Software, and for those of you who are new with ChiefArchitect, ChiefArchitect is the leading developer of 3D home design software for kitchen, bath, and interior design. In this webinar, we're going to be using the actual software to create a kitchen design, and we will start by creating a kitchen floor plan, then take a look at how to design custom manufacturer cabinetry. We will create a wall elevation and automatically dimension it, and along the way we will be using 3D rendering, and later in the webinar we'll take a look at the different 3D rendering techniques available. We will also take a look at how you can use the software to provide your clients with design and material options in the example of an island, and we'll wrap up by taking a look at ChiefArchitect's 3D Viewer app. And here's a rendering of what the final design we will create today will look like. So with that, let me go ahead and switch around to Chief and let's get started. So here I am in the program. Up towards the top left-hand corner there are different architectural tools. There's going to be tools for walls and doors and windows and cabinets and so forth. And if I come over to one of these tools, such as the wall tool, there's going to be different types of wall tools. There's going to be exterior walls, interior walls, foundation walls. For designing showers and bathrooms, there's glass walls and glass pony walls. But the design process starts in ChiefArchitect by selecting the wall tool you want to use. In this case, I'll select the straight interior wall and then come to the plan and left click and drag the wall tool across the screen to draw out the shape of the floor plan. Once you have the shape of the floor plan and you're ready to dimension the room, you can turn on your temporary dimensions, come over to this wall on the right, and you can see that I get a temporary dimension that pops up across the screen that currently reads 208 inches. If I wanted this room to resize from left to right, I can click on that dimension, type in my new value, and when I press enter, this wall on the right will bump out to account for the room's change in space. I'll then do the same thing with this wall on the bottom, select it, select the corresponding dimension and type in my new value, and press enter, and there you can see that we have the room resized. At any point you can enter a 3D view by going up to your camera tools at the top, and there's going to be different types of 3D views you can create. There's going to be a full camera, which is like a first person point of view. The full overview is like a bird's eye view. The floor overview is like a bird's eye view, but it intentionally has no roof and ceiling so that you can look into the design. And then there's a framing overview that only shows framing. I'm going to select the perspective floor overview, and you can see how it instantly creates a 3D view. Maneuvering through your 3D views is easy in ChiefArchitect. Using the left click on my mouse, I can rotate around the design. Using the scroll wheel on the mouse, I can zoom in and out. And then by clicking and holding that scroll wheel, I can pan back and forth. You can even work in 2D and 3D at the same time by coming up to this 3D tab that was created when I entered the 3D view, and by clicking and pulling it over to the side of our screen. Next, I want to tell the program that this room type is going to be used as a kitchen, which will help automate our design process. So what I'm going to do is click once in the room, and when you do that, options become available in the bottom left-hand toolbar to further interact with it. And one of these options says Open Object. This is going to open up the room specification, and how these specifications are laid out is that on the left you have different categories of things you can adjust about it. You can make your adjustments in the middle, and then on the right you can see a preview as to what those adjustments will look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch our room type from the unspecified room type to the kitchen room type, and watch what happens to my molding in this preview when I make that change. The molding style changed based off of the default settings I had set up for the kitchen room type in the default settings. There will be other changes that occur as well, such as the flooring type will update based on what I have in the default settings for the kitchen room type, as well as adding a room label over in the floor plan view and so forth. As a kitchen and bath designer, you may need to be aware of structural information about your rooms or the floor plan. If we come over to the structure panel on the left hand side, you can adjust those structural pieces of information. And as I move my mouse across the various fields here, You can see in the graphic on the right hand side how the program is highlighting those values, making it easy to recognize what you're adjusting. As a kitchen bath designer, you may be more focused on what the interior dimension is. So if we come over to the finished ceiling value, that is going to be measured from the top side of the flooring to the underside of the ceiling, and you can just plug in whatever your value is here. So pretty easy to modify room and floor plan height information. I'm going to accept these values for how they are, and when I click OK, watch what happens in our floor plan view. You can see how the flooring finish updated, as well as the molding finish, as well as generating a room label over in the floor plan view based on what I had set up in the default settings. Next, if we take a look at a photo of the finished kitchen, we are going to have some windows along this back wall over here. So let's go ahead and add those next. So in my 3D view, I'm going to adjust it a little bit so that we are looking a little bit more head on at this wall in the back. And to add a window, I can come up to our window tool in the top toolbar, select the window, and then come over into the 3D view. And as I move my mouse along that back wall, you can see how I get an outline as to where I'm going to be placing the window. And I'll click once, and that window will be placed. You can edit objects directly in the 3D view. So if I click on the window, you'll notice how I get little temporary dimensions going around this window, and there's little handles that correspond with those temporary dimensions, and I can click and drag on those handles to resize objects. And additionally, if I wanted to move this window's position from within the wall, the square handle right here will do so. If I were to double click on this window, I could further edit the styling properties for the window being used. I'll go ahead and cancel out of this menu. And next, if we look at our floor plan view, you can see how the program added the window into this back wall. And if we zoom in and focus on this window and click once on it, you can see how the program produces a dimension going from the wall surface to the window casing, and the dimension is formatted in inches. The dimensions are picking up wall surface, opening casings, and are formatted in inches because the program comes with a kitchen and bath design template specifically with those settings pre-configured. With that window selected in the floor plan view, if I wanted to move its position within that wall, I can then come over to that temporary dimension and click once, type in my desired value and press enter, and it will move that window's position within the floor plan. Let's go ahead and make our 3D view our full screen view. And next, I need another window over in this area of the plan. With our first window in place, I can click on it, and in the bottom toolbar there is an option that says copy. And when I click on that copy option, there are a few ways you can paste it throughout the plan. One of the options says reflect about object. So what I'm going to do is select this reflect about object and bring my mouse into the screen, and you can see how I get that gray dashed line once I come across the middle of the room. And over on the right hand side of that wall, you can see a gray outline as to where I'm going to be pasting my copy. So I'll reflect the copy across the room and click once to paste it into the position. Next, if we take a look at a photo of the finished rendering, we're going to have a range along the back wall as well as a hood over the range. These objects are going to be located in the library browser, which is going to be this button towards the top right hand corner of the screen. Within the library browser, you will see the core catalogs, which are going to be items that download by default when you download the program. The bonus catalogs are items that we've created in-house that can add more variety to your design. Manufacturer catalogs are going to be our brand partners who have provided their content for use within the program. And then the user catalog is where you can store items that you just want quick access to or items that you use very frequently. And you can see that I have a few items that we're going to be using today in the user catalog. But for the range, I know it is going to be a sub-zero range, so I'm going to open up the manufacturer folders. And these are just a few of the manufacturers that we have available. For the full list of all the manufacturers available, you would want to visit our website. And I'm going to come down to the sub-zero folder and expand it. I'm going to expand their cooking folder, come down to the ranges, gas ranges, and then just find a gas range that I want to use. And you can see a preview in the library browser as to what that looks like. And then come into the plan, and you can see a gray outline as to where I'm going to be placing it. And I'll click once to place it. Next, I know I want that range centered directly in the room, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. And in the bottom toolbar, there is a tool that says Center Object. It looks like two arrows pointing towards each other. And I'm going to click on this, and you can see that I get that gray dashed line that will show me where the center of my room is. And so I'll click once, and there I'll place the range in the center of the room. Next, I already have a hood I want to use picked out in my user catalog, so I'm going to scroll down to that section of the library browser, find that hood, come over and click once to place it against the wall, and just like with the range, select it, center object, and then make sure that I have it centered over the range. Next, if I knew that I liked this combination of range and hood and I would reuse it at future plan, I can block them into what the program recognizes as an architectural block, which allows us to move them around together, and then we can add it to the user catalog for use in a future plan. So first, let's create an architectural block by selecting the range, holding the control key on my keyboard, which will allow us to select a second object, and there I've got the hood selected. And then in the bottom toolbar is that Make Architectural Block button. So I'll go ahead and click on it. Now the program recognizes these as a single unit that we can move around together. And then to add them to the user catalog to reuse in a future plan, there is a button in the bottom toolbar that says Add to Library. So I'll go ahead and click on that. The program will add it to my user catalog, and then from here I can right click on it and give it a new name and use it in future plans. I'm going to go ahead and delete that from my user catalog since we don't need it for this webinar. And then I'll go ahead and press undo a couple of times to get the range and hood back in the center of the room. And then I will go ahead and unblock them into their individual appliances. And then next, if we close the library browser and then go over to our floor plan view, you may want to have dimensions start to develop around the outside of the room for creating layouts. If you click in the room, one of the options in the bottom toolbar that becomes available says Auto Room Dimension. And when we click on it, it's going to have dimensions populate around the room, locating those wall surfaces, opening casings, appliance center lines, and locate other common kitchen and bath dimensioning standards. Next, let's go back to our 3D view. And next, let's talk about how cabinetry works in ChiefArchitect. So up at the top of the screen there is going to be our cabinetry and kitchen and bath design tools. Here there's going to be a base cabinet, wall cabinet, full height cabinet, fillers, and so on and so forth. If I come up to the base cabinet tool and I move my mouse into the screen and I click and place a base cabinet, it is going to come into the plan with a cabinet box, a door, a drawer, hardware, and a countertop already applied to it. If I double click on the cabinet to open up its specification, there are a ton of ways you can design cabinetry in ChiefArchitect. Starting on the general panel, here you can edit information about the size of it, whether a countertop automatically generates over it, if you want a backsplash to appear behind it, such as in a small vanity room, information about the toe kick. Moving down to the box construction panel, you can specify if it's going to be framed or frameless and what's going on with the overlay amounts. The front, sides, and back where you can design the face of the cabinet, and we'll take a look at this in a little bit more detail later on. The door style and the hardware being used, and we'll swap this out directly in our 3D view here in a minute. You can add accessories, specify if you want to see the opening indicator, change the molding style, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of ways that you can design cabinetry, and let's go ahead and cancel out of this and take a look at how manufactured cabinetry works in the program. So I'm going to go back to the library browser, and I'm going to close out of the user catalog, and I'm going to go up to a manufacturer that I've already picked out today. We're going to be working with Sightline Cabinetry. So if I expand this folder, you can see that we have various door styles that they offer, finishes and colors, and then other accessories you can use with the cabinets. So if I come to the door styles folder, you can see all the different door styles that they have provided to use within ChiefArchitect. So what I'm going to do is go down to this culture folder, and if I come down to below, I'm going to click on the culture door, see a preview as to what that looks like, And watch what happens to my mouse when I move it into the plan. You can see that I have a little gray outline as to where I'd place that door. I can just place it right now as a freestanding object if I wanted to, but watch what happens to the cabinet when I move it over the cabinet door. The icon changes, indicating I can swap out the door that's currently on the cabinet with that Coulter door I selected. So I'll click once. Very subtle change since it's going from a frame door to a frame drawer. But if I go over to the Coulter drawer and then come over to the current slab drawer on the cabinet and click, you can see how we swap it out with that new style. Additionally, if I come back to the Sightline folder and I go down to the finishes and colors, there's a bunch of different ways you can finish these cabinets, and I'm going to come down to the wood stains and glazes, expand our red oak folder, and then click on the red oak, and you can see a preview as to what that looks like in the bottom toolbar. And then watch what happens to my mouse when I move it into the screen. You can see how it's a spray can indicating I'm going to apply a material. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner, there are different scoping modes for how you're going to be distributing this material. I'm currently in component mode, which means it's going to go click by click as I work my way around the cabinet. If I were to switch to object mode and then come over and click on the cabinet, anywhere that white material was located on this cabinet object will be updated with my newly selected material. And then the same concept applies for updating materials room-wide, floor level wide, or throughout the entire plan. Next, we can apply a color on top of our wood grain. So I'm going to go over to the colors folder and expand it, and I'm just going to find a color I like, natural brown glaze, and when I move my mouse into the plan, you can see that it is now a rolling pin indicating it's going to be blended with that wood grain. And watch what happens when I click on the cabinet in object distribution mode. We've updated the cabinet to be a slightly darker shade of brown while retaining our wood grain. Next, let's go ahead and update our countertops. And earlier today, I found a countertop material I want to use offered by Silestone. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy the name of that material by highlighting it and pressing Ctrl-C on my keyboard, going back to the program, and then in the library browser, just pressing Ctrl-V to paste it and press Enter. You can see that it's located under Silestone's library, and I can just select it and then click on our current countertop material, and it will be updated to my new material. Once you've designed your first cabinet and you're happy with it and you want it to be the basis for all future base cabinets that you add, you can click on it, and in the bottom toolbar there's an option that says set as default. That's going to set it as the program default for the base cabinets. Now any future base cabinets we add will be based on this style. So let's go ahead and close the library browser and delete this base cabinet. And next, let's go ahead and add some base cabinets into the room, starting over in this corner of the plan. So I'm quickly going to rotate our 3D view so that we are looking over into this corner of the room. And I'm going to come over to our base cabinet tool. And you can see that preview as I glide against the wall, and watch what happens as I push it in the corner. You can see that the program recognizes that it needs to be a corner cabinet, so I'll click once to apply it. And then next I will apply a base cabinet over along this wall. And then next, let's go ahead and resize this base cabinet by selecting it. You can see our temporary dimensions and our handles. And let's just go ahead and drag it out to 30 inches. And watch what happens to the door on that cabinet once I release my mouse. You can see how the program automatically changes it to a set of double doors, since that would be more common for a 30-inch wide cabinet. Next, let's go ahead and place some cabinets along our walls. So I'm going to go back up to the cabinetry tools, select the wall cabinet, and come along that wall and push it into the corner. And then I'll go ahead and place another cabinet right next to it. And then I'll select this one and resize it to 42 inches wide. And then the next thing I want to do is get an exact copy of these two cabinets over in this position in the plan. So with the wall cabinet selected, I'm going to hold the Control key to select the base cabinet. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, click on Copy, Reflect About, and then just come over to the face of this diagonal base corner cabinet. And you can see how I will reflect it to the other side, and it will be along that wall. And there we have those cabinets in position. And one thing that's a little bit unique about these wall cabinets is as I've been adding them, the molding's been regenerating to follow the upper part of it. Next, let's go ahead and make this cabinet 36 inches wide and then change it to a set of drawers. So I'm going to click on the cabinet. You can see our temporary dimension and then come over to our handle on the right and just resize it to 36 inches. And then next, to make it a bank of drawers, I'm going to double click on it. And then we're going to go to the front sides back panel on the left hand side. And here you can see the drawer and the door that we have. And notice that as we select those items in the middle of our dialog, they highlight in our preview over on the right hand side. And if we want to change these doors to something else, we can come over to where it says item type right here in the middle and change it to something else. Additionally, if we want to be very specific with the item height, we can control that here. And then down below, you can control what's going on with the shelves behind these doors. If you had some sort of accessory or a different insert in there, you can control that here. And then there's finer details you can control about the cabinet. But what we want to do is change it to a bank of drawers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to these controls over on the right hand side right here. And I'm simply going to press delete to remove the door. And you can see how we now just have an opening in place of the door. I'll press delete one more time. And now we just have one giant drawer. Next, we can click on that drawer. And then there's a button here that says split horizontally. And that will split it into two. We'll do it again. There we have 3 drawers. One more time, we have 4 drawers. And then if you want to be very specific with the size of each of them, you can come down here and edit it. But I know that I just want them all the same size. So I will click where it says vertical layout parent at the top, which will in essence select all of those drawers. And then I'll click on this equalize button and the program will make them all the same size. And then I can apply them to the plan. Next, let's go ahead and get a copy of this cabinet over in this space. So with the cabinet selected, I'll press on copy, reflect about, come over to the edge of itself and click once to paste it. And there we have that cabinet in this plan. Next, let's work on these cabinets in the corner, starting with this upper cabinet. I know that I want it to be a pie cut cabinet. So what I can do is just uncheck where it says diagonal. And it will remove the diagonal front so we have a pie cut cabinet. Additionally, if you want it to be a lazy Susan showing the tray in the floor plan view, you can check this box here. I'll go ahead and click on OK to apply those changes to the plan. And then next, let's make a similar change with our base cabinet. So I'll double click on it. I'll uncheck diagonal door. And then I want to flip the handle side so that it's on the other face. So we'll go to the front sides back panel over here on the left. We currently have an auto right door, so we will go ahead and change that to an auto left. That will change the pull to the other side, and then we can click on OK, and those changes will be applied to the plan. Next, if we take a look at a rendering of the finished kitchen, you can see how over on the other half of the kitchen, how it's nearly an identical replica of what's going on the left hand. So we'll just copy all these cabinets over here and reflect them to the other side. So what I'm going to do is hold Control and just start clicking on all the base cabinets and then click on all the wall cabinets. And then in the bottom left hand corner, press the copy button, reflect about, come over to the center of the range since that's in the middle of the room and click once. And there we have all of those cabinets on the other side right here. Next, let's go ahead and add a backsplash along the 3 walls. The backsplash tool is going to be located in the cabinetry and kitchen and bath tools. There's an option for custom backsplash, and with it selected, we can just come along these walls and click once to add it along those walls. And backsplashes are polyline based objects in ChiefArchitect, which means you can resize and reshape them in any way you want. For example, we can grab this corner, drag it down. If we wanted to, we could curve that edge. If we wanted a new backsplash segment, we can select the tool and click and drag it in this area. So a lot of ways that you can customize backsplashes in the program. I'll go ahead and press undo a couple of times. And then let's go ahead and grab our backsplash and move it up to the top of the wall. And next, let's take a wall elevation of this wall and dimension it. So we'll close this 3D view. We can always open up another 3D view. And to generate a wall elevation, we'll go up to our orthographic view tools, select wall elevation, and come over into the middle of the plan and just click and draw a wall elevation facing that wall. So here we have that wall elevation, and we can design in this view if we wanted to. For example, if we wanted a niche along this back wall, we can come up to the niche tool, which resides underneath our window tools, and then just click and place it wherever we wanted to. Or if we wanted to modify our cabinets, we can select them and edit them if we wanted to. But next, let's just generate some dimensions going around our wall elevation. If we come up to our dimension tools in the top toolbar, there is an option for auto elevation dimensions, and this will generate dimensions going around the plan in accordance with common kitchen and bath standards, and these dimensions are fully customizable. For example, if we look at this dimension string on the left, we can see that it's a little bit busy, and if we click on it, we'll have a series of diamonds in the plan that locate with the different extensions on the dimension string. If we wanted to remove points from this dimension string, we can come over to the diamond, click and drag it off the dimension string. We'll get a message that says, hey, we're turning off the auto regenerate dimensions. Do you want to proceed? We'll click on yes to this, and then we'll do the same thing with that upper one. Alternatively, if you wanted to add points to this dimension string, you can click on it, and close to where you clicked will be an extra diamond handle, which you can then select and drag into the plan to locate points within the plan. Additionally, all your CAD tools, your text tools, your line tools, and so forth work in this view, so it's very easy to notate this view to your liking. Once you're happy with this view, you can click on the Save button in the top toolbar, and then close it. And then if you ever need to reopen it again, you can just double click on the call out in the floor plan view to open that same view again. Next, if we take a look at our final rendering again, let's go ahead and add some more cabinets over in this area of the plan, and then we'll add a microwave. So I'm going to go back into our 3D view, and I'm going to use the full camera this time and just click and point it over in this area of the plan. And the first thing I'm going to do is make this cabinet 42 inches, so I'm going to select it. It's very easy to modify the width of it in our 3D view. And then I'm going to create a copy of it, reflect that copy about the edge of itself, and then resize this one to 30 inches, which will eventually hold our microwave. And then for our upper wall cabinet, I'm simply going to select it, create a copy of it, pull that copy out along the wall, and then bump it up against the other wall cabinet. And then next I need to modify the backsplash so that it is extending out to the end of our cabinet. And then we can simply select the backsplash and drag it along the wall. So next let's go ahead and add that microwave into this cabinet. So I've already got a microwave that I want to use picked out in the library browser. So I'm going to open that up, which is again this button towards the top right hand corner of the screen. I'll clear out my search from the last search that we did, collapse the manufacturer folders, and then under the user catalog, I already have a microwave that I want to use. So with it selected, I can simply come into the plan and then come over to this cabinet and click once, and the software will automatically cut a hole in the face of that cabinet and insert the microwave. Next, we need to add the fridge and the cabinetry surrounding it over onto the left-hand side of the plan. I've already got this saved as an architectural block, and I'm going to go ahead and jump back to our floor plan view to do this. I'm going to select that fridge and cabinetry block from the library, come over and click once to place it, and then just rotate it, push it up against the wall, and then push it up against those other cabinets. And then I'll go ahead and explode them just so that we have access to all the individual items there. And then if we jump back to our 3D view and we rotate around to the other side, you can see how that looks in the plan. Next, if we take a look at that final rendering, there is a large island in the middle of the room. And how islands work in ChiefArchitect is you're essentially placing base cabinets, resizing them, adding appliances or sinks if you need to, and arranging them in the configuration that makes up the island. In the essence of time for our webinar, I've already created an island and then grouped it into an architectural block and saved it so that we can quickly just drop it in and make a few modifications. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back to our floor plan view. I'm going to come over to that island in the library browser and then come into the plan and just click once to drop it in. And then I'm going to press spacebar and then select that island and then make sure that it is 48 inches from the range. And then make sure that we have it centered in the room. So there we've got it centered, and then I'll go ahead and unblock it so that we can select those individual cabinets and make some modifications. Let's jump back to our 3D view and take a look at what we got. So we have our island, and I've left some space for us to show how we can use the design tools to modify the countertop. And if we come over and we look at the face of the cabinet, you can see that we need to add a sink into this middle cabinet. I've already got a sink picked out from Kohler that I'm going to use, so I'm going to select that from my user catalog and come over to the plan, and then I can just click once in the countertop above that cabinet, and the software is smart enough to cut a hole in the countertop and insert that sink. Next, let's go ahead and place a dishwasher over in this area of the plan where there's currently a cabinet. And typically in ChiefArchitect, you start by placing a cabinet where you want the dishwasher to go. This serves two purposes. One, it helps with your space planning, making sure you have enough space for a 24-inch dishwasher. And then two, it will automatically generate the countertop. So I already got this cabinet here, and then I'm just going to select the dishwasher I want to use from my user catalog, and then come over to this cabinet and click once to add it. And you can see how that automatically will get added to the plan. Let's go ahead and close our library browser, maneuver our 3D view to look at the island from this side of the room. And the next thing I want to do is show how you can use the software to quickly show different design options to your client. For this webinar, we're going to have 4 different custom countertop configurations to present design options to the client with. Our first option is going to take the countertop and just have it be a straight 9-inch overhang. Our second option will curve that overhang. Our third option will just have a big thick block. And then our fourth option will waterfall that block down to the floor. So let's go ahead and get started with this. First, if I try to click on this countertop, you'll notice that I select the whole base cabinet. And the reason for that is countertops automatically come in with cabinet boxes. However, you can separate the countertop from the cabinet box using a tool called Custom Countertops. So what I'm going to do is hold the Control key to select the base cabinets that I want to separate the countertop from the cabinet box. And with them selected, in the bottom toolbar, click on the Custom Countertop tool. And now I have this section of countertop that I can modify independent of the countertop and the rest of the plan. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag it out this direction towards the seating area. And as I'm dragging it, I'm going to press the Tab key on my keyboard. And this lets me extend it a very specific value. In this case, I wanted to bring it out 9 inches, and I was close. I'll just get rid of the 1/16 there. And I'll press on OK. And if we look in the 3D view, you can see how we now have that 9-inch overhang. Next, let's go ahead and curve it. So I'm going to come back to this view. Select this edge of the countertop, and I know this is my selected edge with the red handle, and there is a curve button in the bottom toolbar, so I'll go and click on it, and you can see how that extends it out. And if we zoom in over to the countertop and we click on this curved edge, there is a triangle handle that you can use to adjust the radius of that curve. So that's countertop option number 2. Countertop option number 3 for the client. We're just going to go back to having the straight overhang, but we'll convert it, the countertop, to have a thick block. So we'll go ahead and press undo, and then undo one more time. And then we'll double click on this section of countertop. And then there's a setting right here that says set thickness from cabinet. We'll just uncheck this and specify that I want it to be 6 inches thick, and then click on OK. And you can see how the program now has a 6-inch thick countertop over in this area of the plan. And then for our last countertop design option available to the client, we will go ahead and waterfall it down to the floor. So before we waterfall it, we need the countertop overhang to match the countertop thickness. to make sure that's not merging through the cabinet. Currently the countertop is overhanging by 1 inch, so we need to bring it out another 5 inches and then we'll drop it down to the floor. So what I will do is select this edge of the countertop, start dragging it out and press the tab key on my keyboard. I'll specify that I want to bring it out another 5 inches and press enter. And with this edge of the countertop selected, there is a button in the bottom toolbar to waterfall it down to the floor. And that takes care of the left side. Let's hold the pan key down on the mouse to go to the other side. And we'll just do the same thing, drag it out and press tab. We're going to bring it out 5 inches and then waterfall it down to the floor. And that's going to be all the countertop design options we're going to present to the client. Very easy and very fast to do in ChiefArchitect, and it can potentially help you upsell the job. So the next client presentation tool I wanted to quickly review is going to be style palettes. This allows you to quickly swap out different materials and design details for the client. So here we have kind of our starting style palette, but we can quickly switch to different style palettes that present different themes to the client. So let's go ahead and go back to the program. And in the essence of time, I already have some style palettes created over in my library browser. So I'm going to go ahead and open that now. And under my user catalog, I have a folder called style palette, and I'll go ahead and expand that. You can see that I have a few options there. I'm going to select this traditional option and then bring my mouse into the plan. You can see how it changes to a spray can, and I'm just going to come over to the floor and click once. And you can see how we very quickly swapped out a lot of things about the design. Our flooring material changed, our backsplash changed, the countertop material changed. If we switch to this nautical theme and then click once, again, you can see how the different materials updated throughout the plan. We have a different cabinet door style being used. And if we look at our last one, we'll click in the plan. And there we very quickly have different design and material options we can present to the client. So a very powerful feature, and more information about creating and using style palettes is available over at the ChiefArchitect website. Let's go ahead and go back to our starting selections. And at this point, what I'm actually going to do is close out of our library browser. And I'm going to close out of this plan that we've been working on. And I've got a very similar iteration of this plan already created that I'm going to open now. I'm going to drag and drop that file into the program and then close our other one. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up this 3D camera that I have in the plan. And you can see I've added a few more details. There's some outlets, there's some can lights, and etc. But the next thing I wanted to do is show how you can quickly show different ceiling options for the client. Again, another upsell opportunity. Let's pretend in our first scenario that the client wanted to see a vaulted ceiling. What we can do is remove the ceiling planes in the plan, and the ceiling will instead follow the roof pitch. So if I click in the room and then I come to our tools in the bottom left hand corner, there's going to be an option that says turn off ceiling. And if I click on that, you can see how the room vaults, and now we have a cathedral style ceiling. And you'll notice that our can lights, they're regenerated to be in those ceiling planes. Let's also take a look at a tray ceiling, as you can see in this photo of the final rendering. So I'm going to press undo once, and then to create a tray ceiling, we can click in the room, and in the bottom toolbar there is an option that says make tray ceiling in room. And this dialog that pops up is going to ask us some questions about how we want to build that tray ceiling. What's the width of it? What's the depth of it? Is it recessed up into the ceiling structure or drop down to the room? Is there a pitch? Is there going to be a molding inside of it? And you can see that I do have a molding selected. Is there going to be a rope light inside of it, which I do have one selected. So let's click on OK and see what happens. The program automatically added the tray ceiling based on my default settings. And again, the program's smart enough to know that those lights in the ceiling should regenerate in the tray portion of it. So next, let's go through the different 3D rendering techniques available in the software. To switch your rendering technique, you can click on this rendering techniques button in the top toolbar. And here you can see I am in the standard rendering view. This is the rendering view I've been using for our webinar. And this is a great rendering technique to use when doing your design work. It's fast to generate and looks really crisp. And for some people, this might be a good enough rendering quality for the end client. There's also this vector view rendering technique. This one removes the patterns that we see for objects, such as our countertop marbling, our wood grain, and so forth, and instead our scene is generated with a series of lines and colors. There's a clay rendering technique, which will create a black and white model of the design. Glass house. This one's kind of an interesting one because it allows you to see through objects and see what's going on inside of them. Going back to the rendering techniques, there's a technical illustration, a watercolor, hand-drawn lines, and a dual tone. And then the one I skipped over earlier was our physically based ray trace. This one is the highest quality of 3D rendering in ChiefArchitect. And what the program's doing when you use this rendering technique is it's calculating how light should be interacting with materials within your scene to generate your view. For example, if we look over at our fridge, you can see that we have a very high amount of reflections that we can see in there. There's a lot more detail about the grout lines within our tiled backsplash. Our countertop materials look more realistic. You can see some sheen coming off of our cabinets over here. And overall, the quality of render that we see just looks a lot more realistic. And that's going to conclude all the work that we're going to do on this design. As we prepare to open it up for questions, I just wanted to mention that there also is a client viewing app available called the 3D Viewer. This viewing app allows you to export 3D models of the design you've created and share them with the client so that they can view it on their own time in the comfort of their own home. These models can be viewed in both a web browser or on a mobile device. And if you're viewing them on a mobile device, there's some augmented reality features so that you can incorporate your real world surroundings into the augmented model. And more information about this ChiefArchitect 3D Viewer app is available on the website. As we prepare to open the webinar up for questions, I just wanted to mention a few other ChiefArchitect events coming up if you're interested in learning more about the program. There's a free trial available on the website as well as lots of training resources. Additionally, tomorrow there's a free kitchen and bath boot camp, which is a great way to get introduced to the program. And then the following Friday, there's a full residential boot camp as well. ChiefArchitect will be at KBIS at the end of the month, and we will be hosting booth presentations for CEU credits all 3 days, and we hope to see you there. If you have any questions, you can send me an email, philip@chiefarchitect.com. And with that, I wanted to thank the NKBA for hosting the webinar and for the opportunity to present. And now we'll go ahead and open it up for questions, and I will stick around as long as questions are coming in. So with that, Alicia, did we have any attendee questions come in?
Thank you, Philip. First, I want to say what an amazing demo. This software seems so intuitive. We have a lot of questions coming in, so we'll jump right into some of the overview questions and then we'll get more technical.
Okay.
The first is, how often is the software updated as it relates to the product catalog and library?
So we try to update the catalogs a couple of times a year. Usually about once a quarter is a good thing to keep your eye on. But we'll update them more rapidly if the manufacturer communicates to us that they have updates that we need to get out the door.
Amazing. I know our audience definitely wants the most up to date, so that's great to hear. I know we had a lot of questions on if there are tutorial videos available. I know you said there's more info at the website, but are there actual videos that our audience can watch to get more familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll flip around my screen here. So if you go over to the ChiefArchitect website, over at the top of the website under User Center and then down to training videos, this is where you can find all of the video resources that we have available to help get you up to speed on how to use the program.
Amazing. Oh, you have a lot of different videos that they can watch. I know we're having some very specific questions coming in. So, for example, I know someone asked about setting up a style palette. Would there be a video for those presets that you mentioned?
Correct. Yeah. So there will be a video on how to create style palettes. You can always type them in the search bar, and a video will come up. And then also in the software, we ship with some style palettes that you can use in your designs and you can modify them accordingly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Someone asked, can you import items that aren't automatically included in the software? So maybe there is a product that isn't available in the catalog. Can they import that in?
Yeah, good question. So the software can import a variety of 3D file types. So if you find an 3D object on the SketchUp 3D warehouse or maybe just some sort of third-party website, you can go up to File and then Import 3D Symbol, and that will bring it into the program. And then you can use it for things like light fixtures or hardware, or so on and so forth. And then also you can download all of our content that we have directly within the program. The key here is just to make sure that you have this include web results setting turned on to get all the content.
That's perfect. That's good to know. Another general question is, do you have free trials for the software? If so, how long is that free trial? And then once the free trial is over, is this subscription based? Is it annual? How can people get their hands on this software?
Yeah, absolutely. So over on the website, if you come just to our homepage, there is a button right here to download a free trial version. You can also access it through the drop-down menu underneath products, trial download. Just fill out the form and we will email you a trial. And the trial never expires. You just can't save, print, or export until the purchase is made. So yeah, pretty easy to get a hold of the trial underneath products and then trial download.
Perfect. Someone asked, is it possible to generate a cabinetry legend on an elevation?
Okay, good question. So if we come back to the software and I'm going to jump into our floor plan view, you can create a schedule. That's what we're calling it in ChiefArchitect, showing the cabinetry and details about the cabinetry. If I go underneath tools and then down to schedules and then cabinet schedule, it will generate a schedule showing what we have in our plan. And you'll notice that in the floor plan view that the label is updated and instead we now have call out numbers. And there's a whole lot of information that you can customize about this cabinet schedule. If I open it up and then go over to the columns and rows, you can include like a little 3D preview as to what it looks like, information about different materials, the door style, hardware, lots of info you can include about it. And then if you wanted to see it in an elevation, if I double click on that elevation, and then I come over to my active layer displays, and then I click on one of the cabinets. Right here, there's a layer for cabinet labels. If I turn that on, you can see those call outs that match up with those cabinets generate.
Amazing. We're having a lot of questions come in, so I'll move on to the next. Someone asked, do you offer one-on-one courses? And similarly, people could possibly take advantage of this at KBIS. Can you give us information of your booth at KBIS where maybe they can get some time one-on-one?
Yeah, so if you have any one-on-one specific questions, and maybe they're questions we're not able to answer during this webinar, feel free to send me an email, philip@chiefarchitect.com, and I can get back to you. And then tomorrow we're going to have a kitchen and bath boot camp. If you are over on our website, I'll make this a little bit bigger here. You come over to the user center and then down to events and training. First, at the top, you can find all of our KBIS info. We'll be there the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the show. On Wednesday morning, we'll have a ChiefArchitect user breakfast where you can meet our staff. And if you're a current ChiefArchitect user, you might be interested in features coming up in a future version of the software. And then we also have free show tickets available as well. This is going to be our KBIS presentation schedule. We'll have them going on all 3 days. And then that last day from 3 to 5 is our ChiefArchitect Bootcamp seminar. So if you're new to the program, or maybe you've been using the program and just want to get a little bit of a quote unquote training, you can attend that seminar to get more information. And then following KBIS, we will have live in-person training classes. These classes are about 16 hours of content spread out over 2 days. We'll have a kitchen and bath and interiors course there, as well as a full residential course and a course that focuses more on 3D rendering and interiors as well. So those are going to be the courses we have following KBIS. And then kind of like I mentioned just a second ago, we have a kitchen and bath boot camp going on tomorrow. It's a free boot camp. So if you're on the trial or interested in learning more about the program, you can sign up for that here. And then again, to access these upcoming events we have going on, you can come over to the user center and then down to events and training.
Amazing. And I know some of your colleagues are in the chat just helping dropping links for everybody based on the things that you're talking about. So I just want to draw everyone's attention there if you have additional questions. Um, Kind of taking this out of the kitchen for a moment, we have some questions about other rooms, bath, outdoor patios. Are they able to do any room in the home with this software? And on the flip side, are there any, I think you touched on it a little bit, pre-done layouts for people to work off of?
Yeah, good question. So in ChiefArchitect, you are not confined to do a single room. You're not even confined to doing a single floor level. So I was just working in a single kitchen in this example, but you can do things like expand the space, add more walls into this space, add windows, add doorways to really flush out an entire floor plan. And you're not limited to just a single floor level. So if you had a full house you need to do the interiors for, basement, first floor, second floor, so on and so forth, and add stairs, add the garage, add the deck, add the porch. You can add all of these type of rooms. In addition, you can design things beyond kitchen and bath. You can design landscaping and roofs and framing and other spaces that a house might have. Um, there was a question about layouts. I didn't show it during the seminar, but there is a what we call a layout sheet available in ChiefArchitect. And if I come over to our website, I can show you one of those and what that might look like. So underneath the user center and then down to samples gallery, you can see some example projects that we've created in the software. And if we look at this one for a different kitchen project we've recently created, you can send images of your 3D renders over to the layout. You can include any sort of notes that you want. The schedule, there was a schedule we created earlier. You can send that over. Your final floor plans, your elevations with dimensions. So everything you need to get the design sold through your 3D renders and then actually built and ordered through your contractors.
Amazing. Someone asked, how do you change the offset of the grout line and have it show in 3D as well?
Okay, good question. So when we're working on materials in the software, what you see for the materials, if we focus in on this tile, it is really just an image of that tile that's repeating over and over again. So if we use this adjust material definition tool and then we click on the tile, and we come over to where it says texture, here you can see what that image looks like. So you can adjust these values here to make the image larger so that the tile grout appears larger. You can also edit that image outside of ChiefArchitect and then bring it in to Chief and use it within your designs. Also, if you find an image of a material that you would like to use in your designs, it's really easy to do that. Earlier, um, I was on Bedrosian's website and there was this tile material I found. And I thought I would demo how you could bring that into the program. So what I'm going to do is just minimize it. And I'm just going to take a snippet out of the middle here and we can use that as our tile. So then if I go back to Chief and go up to Tools and then down to Screen Capture and select Capture Screen, you can see how the program temporarily hides and it might be a little bit hard to tell over the zoom, but I have a little crosshairs where I can click and drag a marquee. So I'm just going to come over to this tile material and then start my marquee there and then drag it until I have just the middle part of that tile selected. And then that is going to add it over into my library browser. And it's got a generic material name, but if I wanted to, I can right click on it, go to Open Object, copy that name from the Bedrosian's website. And then if I wanted to get specific with the size, I can come in here and edit it. So let's say, yeah, 20 by 20 is fine. So 10 inches for each tile in our example. And now click on OK. And then you'll see how my mouse might be a little bit hard to see over the zoom, but my mouse is a little spray can indicating I can apply that material. And I will just click on the walls. You can see how we updated on the first wall, the second wall. And if I rotate over to this wall, and then one more time, we can apply that material. So pretty easy to capture materials from outside third-party sources and use them into your designs. And if you do have a material that you want to edit, things like the grout line through, you would need to edit the source image of it to get that grout line a little bit larger.
That was very impressive. It looks super user friendly. So I imagine a lot of our members will be taking advantage of this.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, Someone asked, I imagine I already know the answer, but can the cabinets be modified to follow the line of the vaulted ceiling?
So it'd be like slanted or angled at the top. Is that what the question was in reference to? Yeah.
Correct, yes.
So the software does not automatically angle cabinets at the top. There are some advanced ways though you can model the appearance of some angled cabinet tops. And if you're interested in learning more about that, it's probably best just to send me an email, philip@chiefarchitect.com, and we can dive into that.
Amazing. Next question is, can you make construction documents with this software with floor plans, elevation, and 3D views?
Yeah, so that's kind of what we were showing earlier with that example of the layout sheet from the website. So this is just a simple kitchen and bath one, but if we look back at maybe a full plan that we have on the website, if you need to go beyond an interior space and show an exterior space, you can do that. Like here we have a site plan, exterior elevations, the full floor plan, foundation plan, and so on and so forth. So the answer to your question is yes, you can create full construction documents in ChiefArchitect.
Amazing. Back to cabinets, I know some people were asking if they are able to do pre-built cabinets, if they're able to maybe change what's inside the cabinets, how easily are those customized, or are we just looking at the faces?
Yeah, good question. So right now we are just looking at the face of the cabinet, but you can do things like modify what's inside the cabinet. In this example, we have a trash pullout over on this cabinet. All of these cabinets, you can choose to show them open or closed. I just have this one shown open, but if I click on like this cabinet, for example, over at the end, and the bottom toolbar, there are some options to open the doors. So they're popped open. I'll bring them back to closed. And same thing with the drawer. You can pop those open and closed as you need to. And there are some advanced settings within the cabinet dialog to control how far open those are showing. And then if you would reuse any of these cabinets in a future plan, you can select it. And in the bottom toolbar, you can use that Add to Library button. It will get added to your user catalog. And then in any future plans you have, you can just drop it in.
Do you have, does that include a Rev-a-Shelf catalog as well?
Correct. Yep. So we do have Rev-a-Shelf, so you can insert any of their accessories into your cabinets.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Someone who already has this software says that when they try and click on a wall, the auto dimension doesn't show up. How do we turn this on and off?
So they might be referring to the temporary dimension. So notice when I click on this wall, I do not get a dimension that appears going across the room. Over in our toolbar on the right is that temporary dimensions. It's the little T with the arrows kind of going from corner to corner. So if I turn that on and then I come over and I click on that wall again, that dimension will appear. And if they were referring to like these more, what you might think of as permanent dimensions, these are the dedicated automatic dimensions with a tool underneath the automatic dimension tool in our toolbar at the top. And then on the left, selecting auto exterior dimensions.
Amazing. Someone else asked, how do you add lighting under cabinets and inside cabinets?
Yeah, good question. So for cabinets, lighting under cabinets, if we look over in this bank of cabinets over here, so I have a rope light underneath this cabinet, and that is just a tool. If we come over to our electrical tools in the top toolbar, it looks like the little outlet. There is an option for rope light, and then you can just come over and click and drag this rope light anywhere you want. I'll just click it in this free space over here so we can see it. Program's going to tell me, hey, that rope light's on the electrical layer. We need to turn it on, so I will. And then if we look at that, you can see how we have that rope light floating right there. So pretty easy to
Amazing.
add those lights.
Perfect. We'll do 3 more questions. If anyone else inserts any more questions, please just make sure you're posting it to everyone in the chat so that way Philip's colleagues can answer you. Otherwise, we'll have to answer via email. With that being said, our next question is physically based the view recommended for ray tracing?
Correct. Yep. So when you're using our software, if you want to create kind of that higher quality of render, that is going to be the physically based. You come over to the rendering techniques button in the top toolbar. It is that third button, physically based ray trace. Now your computer has to have the right hardware in order to do it. Most new computers do have that good hardware to do it. And if you have any questions about your hardware or what's required for physically based ray trace, feel free to send me a note and we can discuss it further.
Amazing. Our next question is, does the system automatically offset distances between cabinet and appliance, etc.?
Good question. Yeah. So some appliances like this range, for example, might have some sort of offset or threshold that needs to be included around the edges of the objects just for spacing requirements. So if we look at it, you can see how in this case there was some built-in um, there is some built-in, you might think of it as spacing to accommodate those values. That's something that most of the objects should have built in, but if you're not finding that it is, it's super easy just to nudge it a little bit to the left, a little bit of a right. You can also include with your dimensions like 1/8 of an inch or whatever you need to make sure that you're meeting your spacing threshold requirements.
Amazing. And our final question is, can you do a framed inset kitchen style?
A framed inset kitchen style. So I was using frameless cabinets for our design, but if you wanted to use framed cabinets, you could set up that up in the you can set that up from the initial get-go by opening up the cabinets, go into the box construction, specifying that it's going to be framed right here. And then you can specify what the separations are going to be, or if you have any special extensions of the stiles where they meet walls, if you want to do that. And then from there, once you have the cabinet box style set up, there is the set as default button so that all the future cabinets you add into the webinar will come in with that style.
Amazing. And we have one more question that we'll sneak in because I think it's maybe worth noting. Um,
Okay.
does this offer electrical floor plans as well? Like, is there anything behind the scenes that we can see?
It does, yeah. So when you're working in the program, I'm going to turn off that electrical layer for just a second. So when you're working in the program, there is a feature up here called plan views. And these plan views are really the strength in the software when it comes to creating your construction documents. As you switch between these plan views, different layers that you see displayed on the screen get turned off and different layers get turned on. And then also how your various tools work will change as well. For example, in this kitchen and bath view, we want to see like the wall casings or the wall surfaces, window casings, appliance center lines, and so forth. But if we switch to the electrical plan view, you can see how those dimensions are turned off and the cabinet labels and callouts are turned off and our electrical items are turned on. And now if I were to use my dimension tools and our text tools and so forth, they're in electrical mode, so they will pick up electrical related items. So it's really kind of the power of the software when it comes down to creating your construction documents.
It's amazing, super helpful. This software has a lot of different facets to it. I appreciate you taking the time and answering all of these questions. I know it's very detailed, and our audience, I feel, has a lot of insight and wanted to know more. So thank you. Before we end for today, do you have any last remarks for us?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending the time today. And if you have any other questions that we weren't able to answer, feel free to send me an email, philip@chiefarchitect.com. There's also that free trial available on the website as well. And there's a few other events coming up. If you're new to the software, there's that kitchen and bath boot camp tomorrow. You might look at checking out. And then we'll be at KBIS, so make sure to stop by our booth. And I would also like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present today and just thank all your colleagues at the NKBA for hosting.
Amazing. Thank you again for your time, Philip, and thank you all for joining us today. Until next time, have a great day.
All right. Thank you.